if white liberals cared about really getting rid of the mascot, there's a lot they can do to help organize or get involved besides caring about their joke. So for them, it's not really about whether or not the Redskins exist or whether or not racism is over. It's really about them feeling like they can't have fun anymore and feeling entitled to be able to laugh at things that aren't really funny.
Jason, part of the whole gag here is the use of the term Orientalism, which is such a weird, old, loaded, it's a stupid word. But to get upset about the use of that word when it's in a satirical context strikes me as misguided. I want to take a look though at a tweet which Colbert Report has tweeted out. It says, for the record, Colbert Report is not.
As a white man, you don't. Really
hang on, Zoe. I'll come to you in just a sec. For the record, Colbert Report is not controlled by Stephen Colbert or his show. He is at Stephen at Home. Sorry for the confusion. Colbert himself has responded to some of the criticism on Twitter. Hashtag cancel Colbert. I agree. Just saw at Colbert Report tweet. I share your rage. Who is that though? I'm Stephen at Home. Sui, you were just going to jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say that I feel like it's incredibly patronizing for you to paint these questions this way, especially as a white man. I don't expect you to be able to understand what people of color are actually saying with regards to cancel Colbert. He has a history of making jokes.
Sorry, being a white man doesn't prevent me from being able to think and doesn't prevent me from being able to have reasoned perspectives on things. I didn't give up my right to be able to have an intellectual conversation when I was born.
I know, but well, white men definitely feel like they're entitled to talk over me. They definitely feel like they're entitled to kind of minimalize my experiences, and they definitely feel like they are somehow exempt and so logical compared to women who are painted as emotional, right?
No one's minimalizing your experiences. No one's minimalizing your right to have an opinion. It's just a stupid opinion.
About. I'm familiar with studies that show that there are no consequences for trans people that use cross-hormone therapy, and I'm familiar with many studies that show that there are great benefits to their health and well-being.
I've got it right here. Transsexuals had brain volumes in agreement with their sex at birth. The intracranial volume and the hypothalamus volume of males were larger than females, irresponsive of condition of transsexualism. This supports the notion that the brain volume changes in transsexuals are related to cross-sex hormone treatment and do not reflect pre-existent differences in brain volume between transsexuals and comparisons. So, isn't it possible for a doctor to take this? This comes from medical journals to say, well, we know the changes occur after the sex hormone replacement therapy, and we know that can be bad, so let's hold off. Or is that doctor ignorant? Because I want to make sure we frame in the language, because there are a lot of doctors out there who would probably agree with you, except for when it comes to the medicine.
I mean, that's not the mainstream understanding whatsoever. You have one study that has one particular factual. No, it's not what the American Medical Association says. It's not what the American Psychiatric Association says. You have one doctor, Paul McHugh at Johns Hopkins, who has many anti-LGBT biases.
Well, hold on, you talked about doctors. Now you've gone from what's mainstream. You said I've not seen those, so we've provided you with empirical data studies. You said, well, I've not seen that, and then you go to some doctors say this, and we could both agree, right? There's a political motivation behind a ton of what happens in the medical industry. I'm sure we're on board with that. Probably with big pharmaceuticals, probably with medical boards. We'd agree on that when it comes to a lot of things. So now we've denied the data and the statistics, and we've gone to what one doctor has said.
I'm on board with medical organizations actually using, I'm only familiar with one doctor who advocates against cross-hormone therapy and transitioning for trans people, and that's Paul McHugh at Johns Hopkins, and that's where Johns Hopkins gets that reputation. So I'm not familiar with the study that you cited. I'm not sure I understand what it is you're concluding from that study, except something about how brains change. But what I know is
the difference is I've not concluded something.
That shows that. Excuse me, I'd like to finish.
It's not fair. I can't let you get away with that though and say I only know one doctor. That's not accurate, Zach. There's more than one doctor on planet Earth who thinks that injecting estrogen into a man or abnormal levels of testosterone into a woman could be bad. The only point I'm making here is that doesn't mean that this sector of the medical industry or America or the world means they're bigoted or ignorant. You're drawing a conclusion. I'm not. I'm saying, is it within the bounds of reason that a doctor may not want to treat that because the science isn't in, and it doesn't necessarily make them a transphobic bigot? It's a simple question.
Fuck capitalism, fuck racism, fuck sexism, Islamophobia, and fuck Trump supporters. What's your biggest problem with Trump?
All his views.
Can you name one?
He's sexist.
In what sense?
The fact that he doesn't support abortion and the woman's right to choose.
But I think a good 50% of women in America are also pro-life.
A lot of women aren't.
Right, but if 50% of a group is something, then...
I'd like to see those statistics.
All right, well, if hypothetically 50% of the women were pro-life, would it still be sexist to be anti-abortion?
I'd really like to see your statistics.
I know, but hypothetically, if I was right...
I don't go by hypothetical.
Well, we don't have a computer here. We can't look it up.
So I can't answer your question.
All right, what happened in there?
I was protesting for what I feel is right.
Were you right up at the front?
I was not.
Oh. What was the protesting? Just yelling?
Yeah.
And then you got dragged out?
Yeah.
Freaking jerk. I gotta hand it to you, it is pretty brave to come here. I mean, the odds of you getting punched are pretty high.
I know.
Like if you went to a Rush concert, this is the analogy I keep using, and you yelled Rush sucks, and then on the way out you were telling people that you don't like Rush.
Supporters here and you're talking to the one idiot. Good.
I got a lot of people. So what are you gonna do now? Just walk home?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a job, thank you.
What is your job?
I'm a graphic designer.
Are you gay?
I am queer.
Oh, you don't use the term gay?
Well, I'm not gay, I'm bisexual.
Oh, I've always been suspicious of bisexual. It seems like a phase.
Oh,
I
well.
see a lot of old bi people.
Oh, well. You're pretty ignorant.
Okay. Well, this has been very enlightening.
J-fucking-K. Mr. I don't go off of hypothetical statistics.
And I'd be careful going home. I'm not threatening you. I'm saying genuinely.
Well, it seems like a threat.
No. Look, I'm with these guys. I'm not going to chase you down the street. But safe travels, friend.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, bye.
Okay, goodbye. Have a nice night.
I mean, of all the things you can say about him, it is kind of brave. I mean, he's a fucking idiot, but he's a brave idiot. You're an American student, feminist, human against Trump.
I am.
What's your biggest problem with him?
Mostly everything. It's pretty hard to pinpoint it, but...
I've noticed that's an issue with these people. Can you just give me one little maybe sentence he said that you disagree with, or one policy he's going to enact? So far your biggest beefs are that he described his daughter as attractive, and that his penis came up in a debate that you haven't seen.
Not my biggest beefs, no.
Well, that's all we got. Well, you got a big one?
Yeah, he's racist. He's sexist. I haven't heard really any firm policy.
Well, we just keep hearing these terms, racist. What's a racist thing he said?
That he insinuating that Mexico is sending their rapists.
They are. 80% of the young girls who cross the border get raped. I thought you feminists hate rape.
I do.
So do you think 80% is a pretty bad stat for women getting raped? 80% of the women crossing the border get raped.
By Americans?
No, by illegals.
Okay. Thanks.
I don't thank me. I didn't rape anybody.
I didn't say you did, but you're coming and you're spinning everything that...
I'm just trying to tell you basic information.
80%...
80% of young women who cross the border get raped.
By illegals?
Yes, by coyotes and illegals. Why wouldn't you have
coyotes? Goodbye.
Let me suggest another reason why people of color, to use the left's preferred expression, are sometimes a little reluctant to express libertarian or conservative points of view. And I'll tell you something that happened to me at American University a few days ago. Guy lined up for the Q&A, very politely, black guy. He said, I was physically threatened by Black Lives Matter on my way in here just for coming to hear you speak. And if you don't believe me, it's on camera. He was...
Wait, hold on. Did she just change your mind?
What?
Did she just change your mind? I think I felt a shift because she yelled shit out.
Yes, she interrupted me with a bogus buzzword, I'm convinced. And what he said to me was, what do I say? What do I say to black people who have bought into this nonsense when I just want to go about my business listening to a talk? And I said to him, well, they are guilty of the worst kind of racism. They're guilty of the kind of racism that suggests all black people must think alike. They are guilty of the kind of racism that insists...
Excuse me, Mr. Senator. Thank you for your enthusiasm. If you'd please be seated. Thank you.
They're guilty of the kind of racism that suggests that all black people must think the same. They're just in the same way that people who have problems with me being a gay conservative are guilty of a sort of homophobia, a real homophobia, which actually does delegitimize and belittle a particular group and sort of put them in a box. And he said, well, what do I say to these people? And I said, well, look, here's what you say to them. You go out, you calmly and politely, you say, if you believe that the civil rights struggle matters at all, if you believe that the fight to allow black people to have their voices heard, to have an equal footing with whites in this country, if you believe in the restitution and reparations after slavery, if you believe that it is an important goal to hear black voices, hear mine. Because not every black person agrees with Black Lives Matter. Not every gay person believes in the gay lobby. Not every woman is a feminist. And this kind of identitarian politics that we heard from the front, that crucifies people who step outside of their racial or sexual groups because they have the wrong ideology, is the worst sort of bigotry. And those people... And if you're wondering why people of color are sometimes scared, not scared in the way social justice warriors pretend to be scared because a conservative is on campus, but black people are actually scared because somebody got assaulted at American University the other day. If you are wondering why there aren't more people of color standing up for these sorts of opinions, you might want to pull out a mirror.
The student reporters
from filming
the protests she was promoting. Guess how you promote them? Put them on
exactly.
TV.
I do agree with that, and I think that Josh Earnest has said the same thing. There's a very thick line between being politically incorrect and being racist, and words matter. So when a community of people that has been perpetually marginalized at institutions across America over history feels offended, we should acknowledge that. And I think that these protests are a reflection of a community of minorities that feel unacknowledged and not respected. And so, Ben, I read your article today, and I was shocked by the language you used. You were saying that it's time for the right to fight. Yeah. No, but you read his column.
Evidence. All this is screaming and feelings. How about like a shred of evidence, even for the incidents that actually happened in Missouri that drove this? Really? Where was the police report exactly when it came to, for example, the first N-word incident that led all of this? There was no police report on any of that. In the second incident, at the N-word at the University of Missouri, the administration investigated, and the kid's under investigation. In the third incident with the cop car, with the car hitting the
Let me just ask you this, because we're short on time. You tell me, Namiki, whether we are training these kids to be little cupcakes who never have to encounter anything offensive. Assuming everything you said is offensive, they never have to encounter it because they can call the cops or they can get their administrators fired, or whether it's better to educate them that there are offensive things in life, there are insulting things in life, there are people who will say very incorrect or impolite things about you, politically incorrect things about you, very publicly and in a way that you might feel very offended by, and you have to deal with that in life.
Well, you know, $15 an hour, first of all, as we said, it's not enough of a wage, but it is a substantial improvement, and this is what workers have put forward. Fast food workers themselves courageously took their lives into their own hands, walked out of their jobs in a one-day strike in New York City, and demanded $15 an hour. And that is the first step, because the economy is not going to remain static. We have to fight for affordable housing. We have to fight for better services in terms of mass transit, education, healthcare, and that is why we have to also talk about taxing the super wealthy and big corporations.
Well, I mean, of course one government policy leads to the next. If you raise the minimum wage, then it's going to raise the rents. When it raises the rents, you're going to have to build affordable housing. When you have to build affordable housing, you have to tax people to build the affordable housing. When you tax people to build the affordable housing, people move out of the city, and you have to raise taxes on the people who remain in the city, and this is how you hollow out the economy of a major metropolitan area in the United States.